Welcome to Knot So Kreativ. In today's tutorial, I'll show you the magic loop technique, a versatile way to knit in the round without needing double-pointed needles. It's perfect for small circumferences like sleeves, socks, or even the crown of a hat. For this method, you only need one circular needle, and with a long cable, it becomes adaptable to various project sizes. It's cost-effective and less fiddly than working with multiple double-pointed needles. It takes a little practice to manage the loop and tension, especially at transitions, but don't worry, we'll go through it step by step to make it easy. Now, let's get started. Now, one thing you should know is that the length of the cable should be at least 30 inches, which is about 75 centimeters. This is important for this technique, as we need enough cable to create the loops. If you want to knit 2 socks at a time, you should probably need a longer size cable, like over 100 centimeters. Now, cast on the required number of stitches for your project using any cast-on method you prefer. In this case, I will be using the long tail cast-on, and I'll be casting 30 stitches. Okay, now that we have completed our cast on, slide all these stitches to the middle of the cable and count them. You have to divide your stitches evenly into 2 halves. If the total number isn't divisible by 2, just balance them as closely as possible. Now, hold the stitches securely to prevent twisting. Pull the cable out from the midpoint between your 2 groups of stitches. Place each group on the needles. Now we have a front needle and a back needle. As you can see, the pumps from the cast-on are inward. This means, as we knit, we will be facing the right side of the fabric. And notice that the working yarn is on the back needle too. Okay, let's begin knitting in the round. Position both sets of stitches close together. And now start by pulling the back needle out, so the stitches slide onto the cable. This creates a long loop of cable between your 2 groups of stitches. This is the magic loop. The front half of the stitches should rest on the needle, and the back half should remain on the cable. Knit across the front stitches as usual, ensuring your tension is even for the first few stitches to avoid a loose or tight join. Once you have finished the front stitches, turn your work so the stitches you just worked are now at the back needle. One thing to make sure that you're knitting in the right position is to make sure the needles are pointing to the right and that the working yarn is always coming from the back needle. Pull the cable so that the remaining stitches are now positioned on the front needle, ready to be worked, and the stitches on the back needle are now hanging on the cable. Adjust the loops to keep everything tidy. Repeat the process. Knit across the front stitches, turn your work so the needles are pointing to the right again, and adjust the loops as needed. Now, I want to give you some tips about maintaining the tension, as it is important for this technique. One common mistake that you have to avoid is placing your finger in between the needles. This will create a bigger gap in the joints, so it will result in ladders. Another common issue I wanted to address is accidentally creating a new stitch by making an unintentional yarn over. If you're knitting continuously in the round, like in this sample, this is less likely to happen. However, if the first stitch on your needle is a purl stitch, you'll need to bring the yarn to the front to purl it. If you do this by placing the needle in front of the working yarn, it can easily result in an accidental yarn over, creating an extra stitch. To avoid this, make sure to bring the needle behind the working yarn before purling the first stitch, like this. See? No extra stitches. Now, while maintaining the needles close to each other will help you having a good tension on the joints, I would like to give you another tip. This is something I like to use sometimes if the yarn is too slippery or I simply can't control the tension. After pulling the back needle out to start a new round, instead of knitting immediately, slide the first 2 or 3 stitches onto the needle. This creates an additional loop before starting knitting, which allows you to tighten the working yarn more confidently before you begin knitting. And once it feels secure, knit the stitches as you would normally do. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and leave a comment below. Have you tried the magic loop before? Do you have any extra tips? Happy knitting, and I'll see you in the next video.